What would you say are the top 3 reasons people get divorced? Is it infidelity? Or is it financial? Is it something else?
Yeah, I mean, the top 3 big reasons, again, you know, within the idea that the little things add up and cause these things, but yeah, absolutely infidelity would be number 1. Finances would be number 2. And number 3 would be, I would just call it attrition. It would just be, you know, that relationships they just burn up. People just don't care anymore. You know, the opposite of love isn't hate.
It's contempt, right?
It's indifference.
Indifference.
I mean, hate is a passionate emotion. Like if you hate me, you feel strongly about it.
If you just don't care anymore.
Right. Like, you know, there's a line in Casablanca, the movie, where, you know, one of the characters says to Humphrey Bogart's character, he says, "Boy, you really hate me." And he says to him, "You know, I suppose if I gave you any thought, I probably would." And I found when I saw that film, I thought, oh, that's the most cutting insult. Because when you really just don't care, like that's the opposite of love. Because love is about, I'm paying attention. I want to please you. Your pleasure gives me pleasure. Your joy gives me joy. Your sadness becomes my burden, you know, and it becomes something I want to alleviate. So indifference, that sense of, I don't care what you're doing. I don't care if you're happy. I don't care if you're sad. I don't care. That's the thing. And that's where people land sometimes, you know, as they just land in that place where they used to care. And then in this escalating war of, well, I shouldn't have to do that. Well, I shouldn't have to do this. Well, I shouldn't have to do that. Well, then I shouldn't have to do that. And now you got 2 people that are just, great, you guys won. Good job. Neither of you has to do anything for each other anymore. Right. Great job. Yeah. Great job. You're living with a person who owes you nothing and you owe them nothing except what the state tells you that you owe each other.
Wow.
And you never meant to be there. You never meant to be there.
Yeah. Wow. What's the best way to handle financial stress, in your opinion?
Financial stress?
Yeah.
Don't get into it.
Hey,
no, the best way to handle financial stress, again, I think candor. You know, just candor.
Probably communicating it before you get married.
Absolutely.
These things so you don't get into it.
Absolutely. Hey, what's the best way to lose weight? Don't get fat.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the truth is try to find a way to prevent getting in that place. But look, once you've got financial stress, so there are financial stresses you can't prevent. You know, you lose your job. Your company lays off 500 people and you're one of them.
You get a medical challenge, right? That happens. Yeah.
Okay, so how do you deal with it? Well, with candor, with courage, you know, with honesty, with, you know, with fearlessness, you know, with bluntness. I mean, one of the things I like I said, I love about your book, and that's why I said I think the 2 books together would actually be a great combination. If you know a guy who's getting married, you buy him your book, you buy him my book, and I think you just drop the statistics down on these guys. Because the truth is you know, knowing your stuff and being fearless enough to say this is what it is, that's where the magic is.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I saw one of the chapters says yours, mine, and ours, the financial system that works best.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people have their own way of how they want to run their money.
Right.
Right. They like managing it their way, spending it on things they want to spend it on. Some like getting in debt, others don't like getting in debt. So how do you find our way?
Well, I mean, you got to keep in mind, marriage was created as a technology, right?
When was it created?
Women were property, essentially. I mean, it was created in medieval context. I mean, it was created essentially to you know, preserve wealth. It was created to preserve lands, right? Royal families would marry each other and rich families would marry each other to preserve land, you know, and to bring clans together. You know, the Game of Thrones mentality of, all right, I'm marrying this person, not because I love them, but because this makes sense. This family makes sense. This union of the clans.
It's our vision.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So that's the origin of marriage. Now, at some point, you know, 1920s, 1930s, it started turning into some romantic notion, right? Some notion of, well, I should have some...
The movies, the baby brought... Yeah.
You know, it's entirely possible. I mean, entertainment media is very much how people perceive, you know, advertising is the dream life of a culture. Yeah. You know, like we started to convince people that, you know, marriage should be more about love, it should be more about romance. And then... you know, people became consumed by that model. Why? It's a compelling model. It's a wonderful model. I mean, there's nothing more exciting than the initial days of a relationship. You know, somebody once said that there's nothing more exciting than getting married and nothing harder than being married. You know, and so getting married, super fun. Courtship, those early days of a relationship, they're fantastic. They're fantastic. There's so many people you could have a really wonderful early relationship with.
Right.
But how many people could you have 10, 20, 30, 40 years with? So, you know, when you think about the fact that marriage was put together when women couldn't own property, when women were essentially sold. I mean, you'd trade a cow for the guy's daughter.
Wow.
And that was what it was. There's still cultures where trade 5 livestock for my daughter, and that's a trade, you know? So now we're in a society where we've kept the same technology that was rooted in that. But we're in a place where men and women are both in the workforce. Men and women both have obviously independent, autonomous value, and they're equals, at least in a theoretical sense, right? Even though there's still some inequality and patriarchy and things people have to figure out and deal with. The truth is that men and women have equality of opportunity, ideally. So now, what makes sense? You're no longer bringing together this overreaching man who's in charge and goes to work, and this woman who's going to stay home and tend to the hearth, you know, and the children. You know, we have 2 intelligent, autonomous, you know, man and woman. And I didn't get into it in the book, but men and men and women and women. I mean, we have marriage equality now. We fought really hard for it so that, you know, gay couples and lesbian couples could have the privilege of this failing technology. You know, and so we said, why should we have all the misery? Everybody sign up. You know, and I've secretly believed that there were probably, you know, gay and lesbian individuals who'd been with their partners for long periods of time and secretly voted against marriage equality so they wouldn't have to have the conversation. Yeah, because if you think about it, when they weren't able to, they could be like, oh, I would love to marry you, but oh, the government won't let me. I wish, oh. And then all of a sudden it's like, great, the government's letting us. It's like, oh, okay, well, I guess we have to have that conversation now. So I really do think that from a financial place, yours, mine, and ours, the basic idea of it is just to say, look, have some joint finances, have some sense of, we'll have this account that joint money goes into, we'll pay for joint expenses from it. But then have some autonomy, have your own individual accounts, have something that you can use to, when you want to buy the other person a birthday present. I mean, if you have a joint account and I buy you a birthday present from that account, I bought myself a birthday present. So, you know, let a person have a little autonomy financially, but have a joint account so there's still some sense of shared purpose financially.
Yeah.
You know?